Welcome back, everyone. My name's Anthony. This is my channel and we're in the shop. Oh yeah, you see that? Big boys. This video is about low speed pre-ignition, LSPI, also known as superknot. There are some oils that have add packs that actually accelerate this or cause this to happen as well. Primarily what my experience is that it's not solely the oil causing the problem. It's the engines that are unmaintained or not using the proper oils for the engines for the conditions they are. What we're plagued with today is an epidemic of oil consumption. In my professional opinion, it is not from the engines and it's not from the oil. It is from the customers and the drivers and the operators and the fleet management teams are just not using the right maintenance practices and intervals, let alone the right oil for the conditions that vehicle is under, and top that with the fuel. So if they're using low quality fuel and not top tier fuel, it's a recipe for disaster. We have more turbocharged engines on the road today than we have had in history. And do you honestly think the customers, and we're going to use this in general, or the drivers or operators, when they go to the pump, they're saying, oh yeah, give me the most expensive gasoline you have here at near $4 a gallon? I don't think you're going to find that. That's my professional opinion. So 1, fuel; 2, wrong maintenance; 3, not using the right oil or changing the oil; 4, regularly enough. So I will tell you for a fact, I know so many people that just pull up to the pump. The guys at the pump don't care. They're just doing what you're saying. If you're like in New Jersey and you're saying, hey, fill it up regular, they're going to put the cheapest stuff in there, even if it calls for a premium or super. They don't care. That's not their job. You as the vehicle owner, operator, or maintenance provider, or fleet maintenance guy, should know that this vehicle requires top tier fuel or super. So I have is this out of the LS? Yeah. It looks familiar because on the LS pistons, a lot of people blame oil consumption on these pistons because the 5.3 piston, because of, it's going to be hard for me to show you this, but I'm going to do my best. There we go. That these notches in the piston become clogged. That's only some of the problem. You see all the deposits on the piston? That is all the problem. Overextended oil changes. Overextended oil. Did you clean these pistons at all?
No, I haven't touched them.
Yeah, I'm gonna just scrape this off just to give you an idea. So we're gonna scrape this section here.
So screw it up.
No, I'm not. I'm just gonna take the chunks off of this piston face in this area just so you can see. Now you see how much cleaner it is? That is the biggest problem. So let me just do another area. So we're going to do right here on the bottom of this area here. I'm going to do it on camera for you. You see the chunks just scraping off? This is the problem. This is oil deposits. Let's just get another section here. So we're going to take this section here. Your pistons should not be chunked up with sludge. So that's just not proof enough for you. So not only what I just did on the side of this piston, this is the skirt area, which really is slapping against the cylinder bore, and that's why it's just worn away. All right, worn away. The oil is supposed to have some type of cushion between here, and you can see that it's probably had more fuel in it, and I'm going to explain why in just a second. So it's the overextended oil changes. Now think about how thick and nasty and dirty and how hot this got. Also with the low speed pre-ignition condition, and what happens with a low speed pre-ignition condition is the engine oil is no longer the same engine oil it was when it entered the engine when it was new out of the bottle. Follow that? The oil you're putting in your engine, and an engine of this condition, is not the same oil that came out of the bottle once you start that car and run it. As you're pouring it in, it's picking up all the contaminants and everything else inside the engine. And then once you start it, it's a blender of mixing that new fresh oil with everything else that's going wrong inside the engine, along with all the contaminants. I'm just going to show you here. I'm just picking up the sludge and carbon, right? So why did this do that? With the overextended oil changes and fuel dilution and cheap grade gasolines, overextended maintenances, not just oil changes, maintenances in general. There's more than just changing your oil. And the engine's consuming oil, so this is a whole recipe for disaster, right? So this is a naturally aspirated engine, and we're talking about low speed pre-ignition. And the engine oil isn't all of the issues. Although people can point it back to the oil's causing it, the oil's causing it. In an engine that's beat to death and abused, it multiplies what's happening for a low speed ignition, pre-ignition. And what's happening is, as that oil becomes fuel diluted, right? Fuel dilution is high. And why is the fuel dilution high? Leaky injectors, tune-ups that are bad, piston seal and rings, valve seals, multiple things. If it was in a good clean engine and the customer and the driver or the operator maintenance the engine properly, this would never happen. This would never happen if the customer changed their oil every 3,000 miles and used good gasoline and did all the maintenance practices. This will never happen. This is not a bad design. The problem is it's the way that people take care of their vehicles and engines and the maintenance providers. And sometimes it's so far out of control when we get to this, there's nothing we can do about it, let alone the PCV system. So let's get into it. So we have compression ring, oil control rings, wiper ring. We're not going to get too specific in it. So what I'm going to show you right now is, I'm going to hope that you can see this. Now you can see how I'm moving these rings in and out. They're not stuck. Now I don't know how worn they are, right? But they're not stuck. The problem is, when you get down to the oil control rings, they start to stick inside of here and become clogged. So just think of this as a screen inside of here, and look how small it is. Well, you've seen the size of the chunkies that I was pulling off behind these ring lands, all right, because you have two rings and then you have the wave ring inside. Behind the rings inside the piston, that buildup is behind these rings, and then it starts to push the oil control rings out further than it's supposed to be, and over time it keeps building up, pushing, and then it takes out the oil control rings. The fuel dilution just amplifies that because it's not really lubricating and protecting the engine the way it should be. So even in a clean engine with a high fuel dilution by design from low tension rings, and the customer not using good gasoline, we're saying 0 mileage, you just bought a high fuel dilution engine, and the manufacturer tells the customer to change their oil over 10,000 miles. Caleb will tell you on his turbocharged Honda motor, at 3,000 miles, it smells like straight fuel in there. That's bad. That's washing the rings, is what we call that. Is washing the rings. At 3,000 miles in his Honda, and they're telling him to go 10,000 miles on an oil change that's fuel diluted. So what happens to fuel when it hits oil? It breaks it down. So 3,000, he could smell it in there, which we already know it's not doing what it should be, because gasoline's not a lubricant to say. And the oil is getting beat to death. And then once that whole thing starts happening, it starts all that firing in the combustion chamber. So this is the combustion chamber. And this is not ash. This is soot and slime. So let's scrape some of it off. You ready? We're not going to ruin Jude's piston here. I'm gas porting your piston for you. So let's just scrape this. That's not ash anymore, people. It's not carbon. That's oil mixed with gasoline. All right, so the oil, as it's moving up and down with the high fuel dilution, right? You got intake, compression, intake, compression, intake, compression. It's firing on the compression stroke. When the compression control rings, the wiper ring, and the oil control rings, that oil and fuel is contaminated in the oil, and the rings can't do their job. It's saturating inside the ring lands. Okay, and then when it detonates from the spark during combustion, it's firing down the side of the piston. So you ever see race car engines, or someone says I leaned out or it detonated? The detonation means there's an explosion. Just get me better. That means there's an explosion, typically in the top ring land, in the compression ring land. But I've actually seen them where you could see the burn rate has gone all the way down to the oil control ring. All right, so the low speed detonation, it's firing the contaminated oil with oil consumption down inside the ring lands. And there's no oil that's going to fix a worn out engine or mechanical problems or sludge problems. And Jude doesn't want me to take this apart, but if I peel this apart, I could show you. And if we just look under here,
You can take the rings out. I'm just saying don't shoot up the pistons.
no, I'm saying if you look close to inside of here, you could see that drain is full of chunky deposits like this. Let me just get some more of it. So that's more chunky deposits. And this is all from this piston that's inside that ring. So the chunky deposits start to push that ring out, start prematurely wearing out the ring, start ruining the oil control part of it. All right, and then it's just a recipe for disaster. So are there oils that accelerate that? Absolutely are, because your engine already has mechanical failures going on inside. And this all stems from overextended oil changes and consumers and drivers and operators not knowing the right fuel, not knowing the right time to change the oil under the conditions that they use that vehicle. And it's just a recipe for disaster. But something has to change, right? So are they going to redesign engines that customers are going to be able to maintain at 10,000 miles? Absolutely not. They're not going to retool the whole world for that. So it's either going to be we have to drive healthier maintenance practices and beat it into the consumers and the maintenance providers and the fleet mechanics and the shops, or the manufacturers are going to have to come up with better oils to do a better job, or more of a cleansing system for, I don't know what the answer is. I know the simple answer is change your oil every 3,000 miles on a brand new car, and you're not going to have this going on. Never. So low speed pre-ignition, detonation is what I call it. It means it's when it hits combustion that it's chasing that fuel diluted oil down and firing in the ring lands. That's facts, people. It's exactly what's going on here. And if I take, actually if you take this ring out, you can actually look inside that ring there too. It should be shiny and clean, like that. And look behind that ring. No matter where I turn it, it's got debris built up behind it. Probably the same thing with this one. So the top ring is dirty. The lower ring is pretty clean. So if you look inside that hole, you see that? Oh, there you go. So watch that. Look at the top ring. Look at the bottom ring. It's pretty clean. And then the oil control rings. I'm trying to turn them. I don't mess up Jude's stuff. But they should turn real easy. Actually, let me just peel it out. Peel this ring out. Why we have you on camera. There's nothing to these rings. Sorry, nothing to these rings. How about that? I touched my phone with this ring, and it flipped all on its own. Let's get this one off. See how beat to death this really is. So now, with those rings out, the wave ring turns real easy. Surprisingly enough, this is pretty clean. But, there you go. So look inside this area here. See all the deposits? So right inside of there, it's actually higher too. Let's try and get you a better view. There. So you see the notch in the piston? So that's the notch where the oil drains down, right? You can see all the sludge build up inside there, and then now we're going to flip it. You see the carbon chunky deposits in there? So that makes the ring stick, believe it or not. That changes with how hot the piston is or how cold the piston is. So like kind of like butter, you know, butter in the freezer. That's how that is. And sometimes harder, like hard candy. So you got those deposits there. Let's go to the other side. And then look at this side. So you see that in that oil control ring area? Look how bad that is. So there you go. So if the black chunkies weren't making it into the oil control rings, that oil control ring could do a better job. So right now, believe it or not, in different areas of that piston that the oil control rings are making contact with the cylinder wall, and I'm saying contact, that now that those tolerances are different because it has buildup behind it, pushing the rings towards the cylinder wall is prematurely wearing them out. So there you go. So there, and this just gives it to you. Not horrible, but you're talking. That's a lot of buildup behind a piston. And then I don't know if I can get you a closer look inside of here. Probably if I had a microscope, you'd be able to see more buildup. The only thing that's supposed to flow through this wave ring, come on, is oil. Not fuel, not fuel dilution, not blow by, oil. And only oil. Once the combustion chamber starts, and the oil starts mixing with fuel, it turns into a flammable, a low flash point, right? So oil has a low flash point, and oil dilution has a high flash. Oil with oil dilution has a high flash point. There we go. So engine oil has a low flash point. Engine oil contaminated with fuel has a high flash point. And then once it moves past all these, you can just see how dirty these rings are. Once it moves past the ring lands, and then it's on the cylinder walls and in the combustion chamber, when the combustion cycle happens, it fires and it burns that oil, and it's burning it down inside the crankcase or in the cylinder. So F1 has figured out a way to turn oil into a fuel. How about that? And that's how they make power, but they're designing their engines for that. So kind of no different than what your engine's doing naturally, is turning your engine into a high flash point oil. Your oil is supposed to have a low flash point with no fuel consumption or no fuel dilution. So let me just show you this here. Low speed pre-ignition, LSPI, also known as super knock, is a combustion anomaly that can severely damage engines. How about that? Everyone driving their car around today is severely damaging their engine every day. Particularly turbocharged direct injection gasoline engines. It occurs when fuel ignites prematurely at low engine speeds and high engine speeds, leading to a sudden destructive pressure spike within the cylinder. Premature ignition, instead of the controlled burn ignited by the spark, fuel ignites unexpectedly before the spark, often triggered by hot spots and oil droplets within the cylinder. If the oil didn't have fuel in it, it would be less likely to do that, right? Low LSPI is more likely occurred during low speed engine RPMs and high torque situations like accelerating from a stop when towing. So it's not only does this happen in TDI engines or GDI engines, GDI, right? Yeah, GDI engines. It happens in regular combustion engines too, because of how the systems in here aren't working properly. And I can't tell you how many pistons. Do a Google image of a piston melted down.
Okay, make sure you don't get the back of my shirt though.
Yeah, I didn't get you. Piston damage from detonation. Just do piston damage from detonation. So we're saying the slug we call a piston. Here you go. Oh, that's a pretty good picture. Here you go.
I don't think this one's from detonation.
That looks like,
That's a valve.
well,
Or-
there's different levels of excuse me, detonation, but this is primary exactly what I'm saying. So it starts to burn inside the ringlands and causes catastrophic failure. So over high boost conditions, lean conditions, fuel contamination conditions, this is what's going on in a slower form here. So, and here, like this is a mild form of it, but look how destructive it is. Once this piston here, right, it's burning so hot inside of here, it's changing the properties of that piston. And then where's it? Here's another one. You can just see, look at that oil control ring. Look at the damage on the side, but look how much less damage is up here, right? So that, once you start getting that going on and you're driving your engine, it just rips it apart. Up all that, change your oil. Change your oil. It's that simple. Thanks for watching.